This is episode 162 of the C-10 podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'm usual host, Matt Fulks. There's a reason I say that. Here coming up momentarily. In this special episode of the C-10 podcast, recorded at Music Theater Heritage inside Crown Center, we welcome Shawnie Nix, whose journey with C-10 exemplifies the power of meaningful mentorship. As a former Kansas City, Missouri police officer, Shawnie brought unique insights when she helped develop the C-10 program as a member of the C-10 Curriculum Committee. Her commitment to youth development grew, though, as she later stepped into roles as both a pinch hitter mentor and eventually a one-on-one mentor. I had to be out of town this week when we recorded this, and I absolutely hated missing because of how much Shawnie means to C-10 and to me personally. So filling in is our Curriculum Committee Chair, Max Utsler, which works out well because Max first met Shawnie when we were developing the program. But he steps in for this engaging conversation. It was recorded shortly before Shawnie relocated with her husband to Phoenix, and this episode captures her reflections on her background, law enforcement, mentorship, and the lasting impact of the C-10 program. Her story demonstrates how different life experiences can shape our ability to guide and influence young people. Now, as I mentioned, this was recorded in front of our students and mentors at Music Theater Heritage. One thing we typically do when we produce these interviews and podcasts for you, we take out the questions asked by our students and mentors at the end. We typically like to keep that private for that night. Well, this week we're going to include them. And there are a couple of reasons for that. I think they were really good questions, which we normally get, but I think then insightful answers from Shawnie. So that's coming up toward the end of this, and you'll notice it. There is a little bit of an audio difference when we do that. But again, I thought it was important to keep those in here for this episode. Regardless, I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Max Utsler and Shawnie Nix. Here's Max.
Shawnie is going to be moving to Phoenix in the next week or so. She's been one of our MVPs from day one. When Matt and I first started trying to organize and figure out who we might want on our advisory board, Matt immediately mentioned Shawnie's name. He had met her through some police athletic league activities and some other things. And when he explained, who she was and what she did, I thought, well, that sounds pretty good. And then after I met her, it took me about a minute and a half to say, yeah, this is really a good idea. And that's all turned out to be true. So she started with us pretty much on day one, right on the ground floor, and has helped us build this to what we have today. She was on the curriculum committee to start. Then she agreed to become a pinch hitter. Then she became a full-time mentor. And I think those of you who have gotten to know her in the last year or two, those of you who are newest to the organization, readily realize the contribution she's made to this organization. So like I say, it's bittersweet to say goodbye. Hate to see her go, but I'm glad she gets to move on to the next chapter in her life. And she has family out in the Phoenix area, so that's a good reason for me doing that. But just so you know, Shawnie, you're always going to be welcome to come back anytime that you want to. Now, you'll notice I'm carrying 2 sheets of paper. And for those of you who've been around a few years, know I am the Mr. 5x7 index card. And Matt and I tease each other and make fun of each other all the time because he brings out his passel of notes and I bring out my 5x7 card, and then we talk about the different approach we have to doing things. But I told Matt today, because he couldn't be here tonight because of a funeral that he and his dad had to go to, I told him I would follow his rules to perfection on this one. So these are Matt's notes for me that I will be reading off of tonight. And so I'd like, Libby, particularly you, I'd like you to reinforce the fact with him that I actually, this time, I followed directions. So that's where we're going with this. So again, we want to have Shawnie as our guest on the podcast this week. And so, as you know, we have the pregame batting practice that we go through here. And here are Matt's questions for you. Who's your hero growing up?
I would say my high school basketball coach.
And why was that?
I think from the first time I met him, he was just somebody who, I think I made it all the way to middle school before, well, I take that back. My fourth grade teacher had showed me some kindness, but until middle school, I think he's like the first person that showed me kindness and caring. And he just taught me, like, I would walk around with my head down and he always like, what are you looking for? Change on the floor. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, hold your head up, look up. And so you can see people and, be proud of yourself or whatever. And he was just that first person that made me feel worth something. So
Clearly a mentor.
clearly.
What was your first ever job for pay?
McDonald's.
Oh,
Worked at McDonald's at 701 Minnesota. And I worked there from the time, and I remember I forged my birth certificate because I really wanted to work, and I had to be 16, but I was 15, and so I remember taking my birth certificate to school, and I made a copy, and I whited out the year, and I took it to the typewriter, and I typed in the year, and I made a copy of that, and I took it to McDonald's with my application, and I got hired.
yeah, but KCPD never found out about that one then.
That's infraction.
And how long did you stay at McDonald's?
I stayed at McDonald's. I graduated in 1989, so I was probably there until 1989 when I graduated.
Wow.
So from 15 to 18.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good courage on that, that's for sure. What's your motto in life?
Be kind. Just be kind to people because you don't know what they're going through. That's it. Just be kind.
And Matt's favorite question is one of mine. That one person in history that you wish you could meet.
Yeah, I knew this was coming. I should have thought about this.
No, it's better when you don't think about it.
One person in history. I don't know.
Well, if it comes to you later,
Okay.
Jump in sometime.
Okay.
There. 17-year-old Shawnie.
Oh.
Tell us about her.
Whew, we'd have a good sit down, girl. Yeah, I like to work, and I think mostly I like to work because I liked not being at home.
Never thought I was the same way.
Yeah, I didn't like being at home. I didn't feel like I was liked. I didn't feel like my mother liked me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like my mother and my sister were really close, and I didn't feel like I was liked. So I did whatever I could to stay away. I worked a lot. I played a lot of sports because that kept me away from home as well. I wish I would have tried more things. Back then, I would have tried. I really wanted to play football, but back then there wasn't any girls in football, and I wish I would have been that person at the time back in the 80s.
Try to start it. Wow.
To do that, but I wasn't. But I still played basketball and was on the track team. So.
And think back at that time, did you have a very specific career plan?
Back then, I did not. I kind of wanted to be an engineer. But I knew my mother had always told me, like if you want to go to college, you're on your own or whatever. So I knew I wouldn't be able to afford it to go to college. So at the very last minute, my track coach got me a 2-year scholarship to the junior college. And he actually called me and told me he had that at the same time where the Army recruiter was at my house. And so I was asking my mother, I'm like, what do I do? And she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. That's what I'm asking you. So I decided to go to college for 2 years. I didn't even end up staying a year, but.
Did that not gain much favor in the household, though?
No, she didn't care. No, she didn't care. She just wanted me out. So do something that's going to get you out of the house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And how did that affect your decision making, not just then, but later on?
I think my relationship with my mother is what made me be a kinder person. I didn't want to be the person she was. I think it just made me grow up more, be more independent, not depend on anybody.
So after the McDonald's thing, did you go right into police work then, or is there some intermediate job?
There was a couple jobs.
Oh, please tell.
So I went to college. I went to JUCO, KCK, and I think I lasted a semester, and I got tired of being broke. So I went to Hallmark and I got a job at Hallmark, but it was what they called a call-in. And that was like a temporary job, but you work full time. And there was never a time where I didn't work 40 hours plus a week. So I went there and I was doing manufacturing. And when I say manufacturing, I just mean like standing at the end of a machine, picking up like the machine would fold the cards, and I'd pick up the cards and put them in boxes and put them on a skid.
Not much with your head.
No.
Yeah.
No. So I did that. Then they offered me a permanent job in the kitchen. And I figured with the permanent job, it was like a 25-cent pay cut, but I would have insurance, I'd have benefits, I'd have the profit sharing. And so I was like, well, I should probably do that. That's probably a smarter thing to do. Hated working in the kitchen. And I say that because
You're a great cook.
I didn't mind the work.
Oh.
But back then, and this was early 90s, this was probably around late 89. It was late 89. The managers, they were older white women, and they were the most racist people I've ever come across.
Wow.
And to have to work under them and to keep my mouth, do you know who I am? To keep my mouth shut and not say anything because I needed the job, it was so hard. And to see how they talked to some of the other women there were older Black women, and they needed the job as I did. And they put up with it, and I'm like, I can't do this. Finally, I made a plan. My aunt called me, and she said that the police department needed a clerk in records. It was working the evening shift, so I was working 3 to 11 while I worked in the kitchen from 5 to 1. So I was like, I'll do this for I'll save up some money. I'll do both jobs for a little while. So I probably did it for 2 or 3 months. And then I just couldn't take it anymore. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to mess them over big time. I waited till lunchtime. And we had to wear these ugly burgundy dresses that buttoned up. And I kept my clothes on underneath it. And I waited till lunchtime. And I was like, you know what? I don't need this job. And you should be careful about how you talk to people. You should learn how to treat people better. And I took it off, gave it to them, and walked out. Couldn't take it. I could not take it.
Yeah.
So I went to work for the police. So I worked there from February to April. And then I quit. And then I was working for the police department. I started working for the police department in April 1990.
And then how did you make the transition into becoming an officer? Did they recruit you?
No. So again, I didn't make a lot of money as a clerk. And my sergeant at the time, she was another one of those people who mentored me, because for a little while I was homeless. Unhoused. I didn't have a place to stay, because when you work for the police department, you have to live in the city limits.
Yeah.
And I didn't know anybody in Kansas City, Missouri. So I would stay with like my cousin who lived at like 55th and Brooklyn. And I was like, I don't want to stay out here anymore. So I just made the decision, I'll just stay in my car. I'll go inside headquarters when I need to take a shower. And when my sergeant called me in the car, passed out a couple times, she took me to the hospital. She came to the hospital on her birthday, and that's how she found out. She was like, what is happening? And I was like, I don't have a place to stay. She's like, when's the last time you ate? I don't know. So she took me to her house, let me stay with her. She found me a place to stay. Anyway, one day we had green tops, and it was a job vacancy, and it showed how much police recruits made. And I was like, can I go to the police academy? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, wait, but if I don't make it in the police academy, can I have this job back? And she was like, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. And so I tried it, and I didn't. At the time, I was 20. So I was 20. So I think I would have turned 21 in the academy. So I was still eligible. But when I went to the psych eval, no jokes, I didn't pass. They said that I was immature. That's the only thing they said. They were like, yeah, she's immature. She needs to grow up a little bit. So I asked my sergeant, like, why? And she was like, they just said you're immature. You need to take a year, reevaluate, see if it's really something you want to do, and then apply again. So I did, and that time I was fine.
Oh.
I really was immature.
Nobody can accuse you of trying to take the easy way out. Nope, that's for sure.
Never.
You paid your dues along the way. What did that experience of paying your dues to get to that job, what did that mean to you in terms of confidence? I just pride myself on I'm just one of those people, like a lot of women, who it's hard to ask for help. So I just pride myself in being able to do something. Not that I don't accept help when I need it, but
just knowing that I did something and nobody, walked me in anywhere and said, here, take her, do this with her. I did it all by myself. It's a sense of accomplishment.
So that gives you a sense of pride, doesn't it? Yeah. And do you think that's been kind of a hallmark of your life of I've done this myself?
Pretty much, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, and so I assume as a police officer, you started as a patrol officer, right away there. Were there any experiences in that made you go, oh my goodness, did I do the right thing? Because you're coming in at a pretty tough time in Kansas City.
There was a couple of times. So I started early 90s when gang activity was very high, when PCP was very high, usage was very high. And I worked midnight. So when I was coming to work, it's when most of the bad stuff was starting. So we would go.
And what year was that then?
I graduated in February 93.
93, okay.
And so we would go, good Lord, we go call to call, meaning nonstop, like clear from one call and they send us on another one from probably the time we got our roll call, so probably 11:30 to 5 o'clock in the morning. And about 5 o'clock is when we literally had time to stop, park, get something to eat, drink, write some reports that we've worked on.
And you had a partner you worked with then, right?
Back then we were one car.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We rode by ourselves, but they would always send two dangerous calls.
Yeah. And I presume they knew what the potential dangerous calls might be.
Yeah.
That part was good. So what about that experience made you want to continue being a police officer?
I think the fact that I knew that I actually cared about people. For example, some people, when I go to the doctor, if I get a doctor that is kind of on their tablet and they're just asking questions and they're not looking at me, what I had a shoulder injury recently. The doctor never, he literally was 5 feet away from me the whole time, never raised my arm, never did any kind of test or anything like that. And I'm like, why are you in this field if you don't want to help somebody? So same thing, that's how I felt about being a police officer is I want to actually make a difference with the community, with somebody, with, even if it's just one person. Whereas I know for a fact that there are other officers out there that don't. They want to, use their authority for the wrong reasons. And if I can counterbalance that in any way, then that's why I want to be here.
Were there many black officers on the force at that time?
So let's see, I worked dog watch and so we had 4 sectors, 10, 20, 30, and 40. And my sector probably had 3, so probably half of my sector. So it's probably half black, half white.
And how were you accepted in the community?
I've always been the type of person that can talk and I can fit in any situation that I'm in. So I was always, I think I was always accepted. And I think I have a gift for talking to people. So there were several times where the situation is elevated and somebody's not calming down and I can come in and I can figure out how to talk to them to bring them down. And I literally would have to tell people just leave the room. I'll talk to them and they're calmed down. We get them out of the house, do what we need to do, and it's fine.
This is J.R. Buckner, President and CEO of First Federal Bank of Kansas City. We hope you're enjoying this week's conversation. For this week's Student Spotlight, I'd like you to meet one of the students in our C-10 Mentoring and Leadership Program.
My name is Taryn Lester and I go to Raytown South, and C-10 is making an impact on my life by improving my communication skills and making me more able to speak in front of groups of people.
First Federal Bank of Kansas City is proud to make a donation this week to the Post-High School Scholarship Fund for seniors in the C-10 Mentoring and Leadership Program. If you'd like to join us in this effort to give our future leaders an opportunity after high school, please click on the link in the show's notes. Now back to this week's conversation.
And during that time as police officer, you had another athletic hobby that you did at that time.
Maybe.
Please tell us.
Well, there was 2.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right.
Which one are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about patty whacking.
Oh, that one.
Paddy wagon is the nickname for the vehicle that you transport people you arrest back to jail. Shawnie was a member of the Paddy wagon, which is a different kind of team.
Yeah, so I played roller derby. So after boxing,
Those
but
two kind of fit together, I guess.
so I'll tell you how it started. So there was an article in the Pitch magazine, and there was an article on football. There was an article on roller derby. And I called my uncle, who's like my dad, and I was like, so I want to do something. I'm tired of boxing. I can't box anymore. Which one? He was like, don't do football, Sean. You'll end up hurting your knees. So I was like, okay, I'll do roller derby.
And hurt your knees.
I tore
shoulder.
3 out of 4 rotator cuff muscles, completely severed them. Came back too early, tore this side. 2 meniscus tears, one of these knees. They're both bad. I don't know which one it was. Yeah, that was roller derby for you.
I only went to that once, and I was terrified at what I was seeing there. That was the most brutal sport I'd ever seen in my life.
Apparently, I like hitting people. I don't know. I got some aggression. I don't know.
So the injuries kind of eventually took you out of that.
Yes.
Out of that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And saved your life.
Well, my husband convinced me to quit because he's like, roller derby's not paying you anything, and you still need to work. You got a point.
A wise man.
Yeah, so I quit.
Definitely a wise man. And then was it about that same time or a little after that you became involved in the police athletic league?
So that was 2006. I started roller derby. So I was already in PAL. I started PAL 2001, I think.
And that just seems, given your athletic background, that just seems to make a lot of sense. Did you volunteer for that one, or did it happen?
So I was a DARE officer, and then we had something happen. 9/11 happened, and they were gonna have, and I was a boxer. So 9/11 happened, and where they were gonna have the national PAL boxing tournament, because it was on a military base, and because of that, they switched it to our PAL center, and I actually got to box in it. And then after that is when people higher up were like, "Can you come to PAL and teach boxing?" And there was actually a guy that was in PAL, and he wanted to switch. So he wanted to teach there. So I was like, sure, I can do that. So that's how I got in PAL.
And that was one of the early contributions that Shawnie made to the group. She knew a lot of the young people who were participants in the PAL program and recruited, and not only knew them, but knew them well enough to know who might really benefit from this program.
Like Leslie.
Yeah, like Leslie. And so several of our early recruits came from that program, and gosh, they really helped get us off to a good start.
And Carmen.
And Carmen, yes, we do definitely thank you for that. Definitely thank you for that. And then the police work. Did you ever do anything? Or did you retire in PAL, or did you go?
I retired from PAL.
That's what I thought. And what led you to retire from the police department?
The climate was just it was just bad.
The anti-police feeling?
No, it was within the police department.
Oh.
Yeah, it was within the police department, and people were being treated unfair, in my opinion. And the higher ups weren't doing anything about it, and I didn't want to be part of that organization anymore. So I had my time, and I could retire. And I talked to my husband about it, and he was like, "You don't have to work." And I was like, "Okay."
Yeah. But now, as I've talked to you the last few weeks, you have become a little bit restless, and it sounds like you would like to work.
Yeah.
What do you think that next step is going to be?
I actually don't know. I honest to goodness don't know what that looks like. I've talked to a couple people about, I love working with kids. It's just my passion to work with kids. So I've thought about something as like a, not a behavior, like assertive, what is it called? Dealing with kids in schools that have behavior issues. Yeah.
Jen can talk to you about that.
Certified behavior something. I can't remember what it's called. But yeah.
Yeah. And you'll be in a big enough city that there are going to be lots of opportunities for you there.
Hopefully.
That's for sure. To tie it back to C-10, what's been the overall importance of mentors in your life?
Just guidance. I feel like if I didn't have Smitty and Sergeant Brown, and every year I send them a birthday card, and I write in the card like every year they know how great, so that they know how grateful I am that they led me. So just the leadership that they showed me, the the confidence that they gave me, like Sergeant Brown, telling me, if it's something you want to do, you don't give up, you keep trying. And, with Smitty telling me, keep your head up, you don't have to walk around with your head down. So just the leadership that they showed me, how to be confident in myself and basically just believe in myself, because, nobody else did that.
And take a step back, since you've been with us from day one. How do you see the development of C-10 over time?
From now or from when it first started?
When we first started.
Oh, man.
Well, Matt and I used to joke that, 8 or 9 years ago, we had an idea, and we hope now we have a plan.
I think it's come a long way, because in the beginning, we had the curriculum, but I don't want to say it was hard to stick to it. But it wasn't as, it just wasn't as cohesive as it is now. It wasn't as put together as it is now, and stuck to. So I think it's grown a lot, I actually think the kids that are coming in are, I don't want to say, I'm trying to pick my words. I think they're benefiting more. Not that the kids in the past didn't benefit, but I think the students now are paying more attention and actually getting more from it.
So let's revert back now. If you could reverse time and go back and give some advice to 17-year-old Shawnie, what would that be?
I would say go to the military. Go to the military. That's my one regret in life, is not going to the military. I think I would have done really good in the military, because I like structure. I like knowing what is to be done and doing that and having no gray areas. So I would definitely tell her, go to the military.
Do you recall what some of the reasons you rejected? Were you worried that it wasn't a friendly place for a woman or a black person, or didn't know enough about it, or what?
I actually don't. I think I went with the scholarship because I think I felt like Mr. Farrell, my track coach at the time, went to the trouble of getting me the scholarship. I felt obligated to go on his behalf.
But since you didn't like it after one semester, he
didn't know, though.
You could have still gone to the service.
And you know what? After 9/11, I tried to sign up for the military. They told me I was too old.
Really?
Yeah, they did. They said, I think I was 36 and the cutoff's 35. Wow. And I was like, well, you're lost.
Wow. Well, that would have been quite a change in your life if you'd have done that.
Yeah.
But I can see where they would really value your law enforcement background there. What?
They're lost.
So you think you might have done it had you not aged out?
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Yep.
That is very interesting there. Folks, we have plenty of time for student mentor questions. Students, raise your hand. Check in with Shawnie. What would you like to ask her? Eli, go.
So the question you didn't answer, who'd you meet in history?
I guess my grandpa, one of my grandpas. I've never had a grandfather. I didn't know my mother's father or my father's father. So I guess I would like to meet them, because I never knew them. Never even seen pictures of them. So.
What was the closest call you ever, the closest scrape, the closest call, the most dangerous situation that you were involved in as a police officer, and was it as serious as, boy, I hope I get out of this one alive type thing?
No, I knew I was gonna be fine. There was a situation at 43rd and Cleveland. There's a convenience store. It's right across the street from the Boys and Girls Club, right there on the southwest corner. We got an alarm call, and me and a guy named Greg Smith, and Greg saved me more than once, were checking the alarm and walking around the building. And we heard shots like close. So we go walking down the street, and when you're in a situation where you don't want to be interrupted and you might have an emergency, you ask the dispatcher to hold the air so that only you have the opportunity to talk in case you need to. So we ask her to hold the air, and we go down. We're walking down the street, and there's this guy on his front porch literally shooting his gun off in the air. And so and there's like a long, tall bushes lining his yard and the neighbor's yard. So we come around the bushes and see him, and we're yelling at him, drop the gun, drop the gun. And they tell you when you're in training that when you're about to shoot, you get tunnel vision and everything starts to go black. Everything was starting to go black. And I was telling Greg, Greg, I'm going to shoot him. And he's like, hang on, Shawnie, hang on. I'm like, Greg, I'm going to shoot him. And he finally dropped the gun. But everything was starting, literally, even though it was nighttime, everything was starting to go black. And all I remember seeing is his silhouette and his arm was in the air with the gun. That's all I remember seeing. And then Greg, telling me to hang on. But he was that was the closest that I've ever come to doing anything like that. And I've never been shot at, anything like that. I've had fights. I'm pretty confident in fighting. So I was on a ride along when I was in records, and the officers that I was with, they got into a fight, and I started fighting with them, and they actually wrote me up for helping them out. And I think a lot of people, I think it's just because I'm a girl, people think that they can take me, and I'm just like, and I've even had one guy, I remember him saying out loud, "Geez, you're strong for a girl." Didn't have to be this way, but okay. But yeah, I've never felt scared. I've never felt like, oh crap, something's about to happen. I've always felt confident. I've always known, help is, not far away. And I think if I ever did feel scared, then that would make me hesitate and I wouldn't be able to do my job. So.
Next question.
John, I have a question. Your comment about Hallmark kind of triggered a thought me and my wife and I have been having. We know right now. And so she's been having conversation with one of her longtime friends who lives out in rural America, doesn't believe racism still exists. And so I think as part of that conversation, it's like, what would you suggest based on your experience?
God, I can't believe somebody actually believes it doesn't exist. I don't know the answer to that. I just think people should get out into the community or get out of their community. If they're only in their communities, they're never going to see anything else. Get out of their communities, go into other communities, and do some work and see how it is in those communities.
I had an interesting experience growing up because I was in about the whitest part of Illinois there could be. I had never had a conversation with a black person or played an athletic event against a black person until I joined the American Legion baseball team as a senior in high school in the neighboring town. And I had 3 black teammates, seemed to get along with them fine. We took our first road trip to Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and the manager of the hotel or the motel would not let our 3 black guys into the pool. And this is 1966. I mean, it's not ancient history that this was going on. And our coach had the good sense to pull us all out of that hotel and go to another one, take the business away in that. Ironically, the guy that he wouldn't let into the pool, Freddie Mims, went on to have a great career playing baseball at the University of Iowa, became their assistant athletic director, and just retired from the Hawkeyes 2 years ago. But I was just amazed at what happened. But the people that I grew up with and around, nobody had any of that experience. And it baffled me. Yeah. Next question there, please.
So do you ever regret leaving the force when you did? Do you wish you would have left earlier? Do you wish you would have left later? Or do you think that you left at the right time?
The only reason I regret it is because of the kids that I left, because I know nobody's going to be there to mentor them like I was. But for my mental health, I left at the right time. I don't regret that at all.
Shawnie, in the current times that we are in, could you recommend that our students take a look at a career in law enforcement?
Yeah, yeah. I definitely recommend it to anyone who wants to rise up the ranks and literally make a difference. Like if you just want to go because of the money or because of the authority you think you're going to have, no, because it always comes back and it's going to catch up to you.
Another question over here.
The question that I wanted to ask you is, as a mentor in our group, what is one of the biggest things that you love about it and that you treasure that you had achieved?
I really like just seeing all of the students grow and just come out of their shells, because it's being on the curriculum committee and being able to be part of the interviews and seeing how they literally first come in to C-10 if they are invited in, and then seeing when they graduate and seeing how much they've grown. And there's been so many of them that they were literally like 2 words when they first started, and then you can't get them to shut up when they're graduating. So that has been the best part, is just seeing those students blossom, grow, come out of their shells. I love that.
Join me in thanking Shawnie for being with us tonight.
Well, that does it for this episode of the C-10 Mentoring and Leadership Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, we hope that you'll leave a favorable review on your favorite podcast platform. If you didn't enjoy it, or you have other comments or suggestions for potential guests, you can click on the comment link in the show's notes. Well, that does it for this episode of the C-10 Mentoring and Leadership Podcast. And if you're your company would like to help underwrite this podcast, if you did, we hope that you'll leave a next time. This is Matt Fulks for the See You in Major Leagues Foundation saying be safe. If you didn't enjoy it, or you have other comments or suggestions for potential guests, you can click on the comment link in the show's notes. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an interview. And if you or your company would like to help underwrite this podcast, let me know. Until next time, this is Matt Fulks for the See You in Major Leagues Foundation saying be safe and take care.